So, hello everybody. My name is Aida Dargahi. I'm the director of Humanities Lecture Series and the professor of Humanities at Foot Hill College. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Humanities Lecture Series. Thank you for joining us on this special journey. In a rapidly evolving society, driven by technology and scientific advancements, it is crucial not to overlook the enduring significance of humanities. The Humanities Lecture Series offers a remarkable opportunity to embark on an intellectual odyssey alongside scholars and lifelong learners. This series is also a celebration of human expression designed to ignite our curiosity, challenge our perspectives, and deepen our understandings of a world we live in. Get ready to be captivated, inspired, and transformed as we embark on the Humanities Lecture Series, where the power of the human mind and spirit will be illuminated like never before. So, in pre-pandemic days, we had our lecture series on campus. Now we're doing it via Zoom, which I like it because more people can participate. Tonight, we are going to have a 45-minute talk followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. Due to the sorry, due to the size of the audience, your microphones will be muted. Please type your questions, comments in the chat box. Also, another very important housekeeping note, our students, you are here, I'm sure, for the extra credit, and of course, hearing the stories. And so please make sure at the end, I'm emphasizing, at the end of the lecture, type your name, your class, and your professor's name in the chat box so you can earn the credit you're looking for. Extra credit, of course. So today marks the last day of Native American Heritage Month. Of course, in my opinion, every month should be the Native American Heritage Month. We are honored to have Mrs. Laurie Sison, a Native American scholar practitioner, share with us her life story. Laurie is a middle school teacher in Renton, Washington. Renton is a suburb of Seattle. She has been teaching for about 16 years. In her words, she says, I live my dream in the classroom. I whispered that dream to the universe when I was 6 years old. It took me a long time to realize that dream. She is now a doctoral candidate at Antioch University and will earn her doctoral in May of 2024. So without further ado, here is Laurie. Please.
Hello, everybody. That made me misty to hear my own words spoken so eloquently. Thank you so much. And thank you for welcoming me to your college. One of the things that has become standard in our state, I'm sure all around the country, are land acknowledgements. And instead of doing a land acknowledgement which acknowledges the people of this area, I would like to do a land acknowledgement that honors all of the land, Mexico, Canada, and the United States, North American continent. All of us people are indigenous to these lands. So wherever we are on the indigenous lands of people, and we went in so many different places that it's hard to say this is the land of the Muckleshoot people, which is what is normally said. So I am a middle school teacher, and I live in the area of Renton, Washington. I just wanted to share the PowerPoint, kind of a little bits and pieces of it. And I'm really new to Zoom, so I apologize in advance if I kind of get slow on this. But education saved me. This is me and my kindergarten picture.
Laurie, we don't have it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me see. I'm trying to share the screen. I apologize. There we
No,
go.
no, that's fine.
There it is.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for letting me know.
Sure.
So again, this is my kindergarten picture, and the sadness that you see on that face permeated everything that was my life at that time. I'm going to go into a little bit more of my journey, but I just wanted to share this picture because it speaks volumes. When you see a picture of a child with sadness in their face, a lot of times you wonder what happened. My story is very hard to tell. It's very hard to hear. At age 6, I had dealt with a lot of trauma already in my life. The next page is just the introduction. My name is Laurie Sison. I was born in September of 1962 in Wapato, Washington. It's a very tiny little farm town in central Washington. I was born in the backseat of a car. I am the 6th child of 9 that my mother and my father had. Just really briefly, I'll go into it deeper. My life in the early years, we were very, very poor. So incredibly poor that a lot of people can't even understand the depths. Our family was dirty. We bathed once a week in a big tub that we had to boil water on the wood stove to get a bath for. But the one thing that I cherish was my ability to learn. I learned how to read and write before I went to school. I was 3 when I learned how to read and write. Again, on this PowerPoint, you'll see I was a homeless teen mom. I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, 10th, if you want to call it, 16 years old. I'm going to be telling my story of what education means to me, why it's important to me, and how education can save a life, mainly mine. The next thing that I'd like to share is a really quick video that I created when I was in Antioch University. It was working on my master's, and it's just a really quick video that kind of sums up a little bit about Native American boarding schools and the impact specifically on me and my family. So just a couple, or about 5 minutes.
Laurie, we don't have it.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. What am I doing wrong? I'm so sorry.
I don't know. What did you do the last time to?
I clicked shared screen.
So,
And
and then
then-
pick that one, pick the video.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then no.
I apologize. Everybody, I'm so sorry. I am not a Zoom person, but I believe that it's fine now. Maximize that.
Oh, yes, now we see.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's not, it's only, I apologize. It's cutting part of the video off. Can you see the whole video?
No, could you please put it on full screen or?
There we go.
That's great.
But-
Thank you.
I'll give it a try. I apologize. I did a trial run and it worked.
Others just wanna give. Some people live just to love, but I just love to live. Well, I would just love to live. Like me, I think we go to man. I love the place on the man. Day every day, I just need.
It was so long ago, and it still feels like yesterday. Little Indian girl, White Swan, Washington. I remember so vividly the feel of the wheat and the corn stalks on my feet as I ran brown and barefoot after my father in the fields, while he drove the tractor down row after row of scorched, dry dirt. It seemed so long ago and just like yesterday that I heard the cries of my mother, alcohol talking through her, making her remember the things that are best left behind. A mother whose childhood was scarred by boarding schools, alcohol, and always just wanting to be what she was born to be, Indian, but never allowed. So long ago and still like yesterday that alcohol takes a greater hold of our lives and takes our mother away into the places where she can try to forget the pain and the sad circle that has come to take her children on the same paths as she walked down 30 years earlier. 8 young lives are left to do the best they can. Nobody to hold them or to rock them or comfort when sadness and fear come to take their grip on them. It is the same sadness and the same fear that held on to our mother when she was a child. And even as a woman, it held a death grip on her. So that the alcohol is the only escape. But then is it? It is not so long ago that it could almost be yesterday. The alcohol took our mother away. It finally won the battle that she had fought for so many years. Took her in true fashion, with her coughing up the blood from the botched lung operation, given by an all too busy agency doctor 50 years earlier. It is long ago and it is yesterday, and the battle won was only of the flesh, because this mother never lost the love of her children. She never lost the love of being Indian or the love of the rest of her family, never. It was almost 5 years ago that this child of Iva's chose a different path to walk. A path that will take her to places never traveled by her mother. A path that can help to break the sad circle and give hope to young who may be feeling the fears and sadness because of the old familiar partners that have plagued our people and pulled us down. There have been many trials and a rough road behind that only help to make this journey's end sweeter. All my relations.
Exactly what I want to see. Today and every day. I'm just me. When people say the life is rough, I wonder compared to what. Some want more than gold and getting left. I just want what I got. I want to feel all I feel. Others down by the sea. Someone live inside my walls. I just want to live free. Well, I was just to be. And more or less. Day and every day. Day and every day.
Thank you for watching that. Again, some of these things just bring up a lot of deep memories, right? So to get to the start of my journey, again, I was 3 years old when I learned how to read and write. I was born in September, so I started school when I was about 6 years old. And one of the things that I kind of touched on in the little bit of the PowerPoint is that we were, our family was considered dirty, stinky. We were incredibly poor. It's difficult possibly for some people to understand, but in the 1970s, late 60s, early 70s, we lived in a house that had no running water, no electricity. We took a bath once a week. wood stove smell all in our clothes. So when we went to school, the kids called us stinky, dirty Cansliders, which was my maiden name. And we were. How can you argue with something that's the truth? You know, when children are cruel, sometimes they can be incredibly cruel. So compounding my sadness, you know, that you saw on my face, some of the things that I endured are unspeakable. Just trauma before I turned 6 years old and went to school. So when I did finally go to school, I didn't feel welcomed. I was very scared. The sadness that you saw on my face was real. It's palpable. And I got incredibly lucky. My teacher for kindergarten was Brenda Batali, and she was a fairly new teacher. And she was teaching on the Yakima Indian Reservation, a lot of Native American kids, farmers' kids, and farm workers' kids. And one of the stories that I would like to tell to start this off is in kindergarten in 1968, Brenda Batali taught all of us kids, no matter where we come from in the valley, how to curtsy and bow, because she said that we had to learn how to do those things in case we met the Queen of England. At that point of my life, I believed it. So I learned how to curtsy, and the boys would bow. And what we never realized is that it's very, very, very unlikely that we would ever meet the Queen. But what she did is that she instilled in us value. She shared with us that we were worthy. And that is one of the things that I will never forget. And if I get misty, I don't tell my story a lot, but if I get misty, I apologize. It's coming back up and bringing that nostalgia. So when we were in class, I was so incredibly shy. I wouldn't speak, but I trusted Miss Batali and I loved her so much. So one of the days that we were in class, I remember this quite vividly. She asked us, well, what do we want to be when we grow up? So at 6 years old, I had two things that I wanted to be. One of them was a flight attendant. Back then they called them stewardesses. But the most important thing that I wanted to be was a teacher. And I loved her and I trusted her so much that I remember raising my hand and I remember her surprise. And she said, Laurie. And I said, I want to be a teacher, with that kind of a whisper in my voice. And she looked at me, excuse me. She looked at me and she said, you can do that. Not knowing, I'm so sorry, not knowing the journey that was ahead of me. Excuse me. And there was no way that she could have known the pain that I had felt at a really young age and the trauma that I'd already endured. But I never, there was never a time in my life that I forgot that. It's unfortunate when you have a dream and you have in your mind, in your heart, a mission, and you're born into a situation that challenges you every single day. From the time I was in kindergarten until I left school when I was 16 years old, there was never a day that I felt safe. There was never a day, that I felt worthy until Miss Batali said those things, and another teacher who inspired me and is also the reason why I am a teacher. One of the things that was really tough for my family is, of course, my dad worked and there were 8 kids, 3 cousins. So my mom didn't work. So getting clothes and things that we needed, school supplies, basic things, was really challenging. So back in those days, there's just like a city dump where people would take their discarded items and they would throw them there. And my family would go, excuse me, to these dumps. And that's where we would get our clothes. So if you take a look at the picture of me in kindergarten and then the other one, those clothes are clothes that we got from a landfill. And it's really difficult as a child to walk into a building, a school building, in clothes that somebody knew that they threw in the dump. So that was another thing, unfortunately, that compounded the pain and silenced me even further at that point in my life. And until I was probably in my 40s, I had very little voice and I didn't advocate for myself, but I knew what those things were. And it's always been my mission to speak up for people. So I always have. Getting to around the age of 9, my mom, you saw in the video, was a boarding school survivor. And if you're not familiar with Native American boarding schools, what the United States government had as a mission was to remove children from Native American homes on a routine basis. And they would take them to usually a mission school. It might have had a Catholic background or Christian background, but they were boarding schools that the students would stay at. The children, they're not students, but the children would stay at most of the time until they were 18 years old. My mother was taken from her mom when she was 5. And my grandmother only spoke our native language. She didn't speak English at all. So my mom only spoke her language. When my mother went to these boarding schools, if you don't know, the United States government had a mission to beat the Indian out of Native American kids. So they would cut our hair. And if we spoke anything in our language, they would beat us to make it to where they didn't want to speak our language. And that was my mom. She was in the boarding schools until she was probably about 18 years old, and she had wanted to be a nurse. She never did do that. She ended up marrying my father. And then, of course, 9 children resulted from that marriage. The challenging part for my mother and a lot of Native American, probably grandmothers, now that they're a lot older, who were in boarding schools and endured that trauma, is that when they take you away from your mom when you were 5 years old and they put you in a place that is very sterile and clinical, it's really hard to understand how to be a mother or even a father if you're a boy in those facilities when you are released or get out of them. And that's what happened with my mom. I love my mom. She's been gone for a long time. But around the time that I was 8 or 9 years old, my mother and father got a divorce. And as in those days, most of the time the children went with the mother, stayed with the mother. And that's how it worked for us. It was the toughest thing for my mother to be able to endure. She was all on her own with 8 kids, and she just didn't know how to do it. So one morning, I was about 8 or 9 years old again. Our family, my brothers and sisters, and I woke up, and our mother was gone. She'd been passed away. She didn't tell us what was going on. She was just gone. We didn't see her. She was gone from our home for about 2 months. And during that time, we decided to go to school or not go to school. We had very little to eat. We didn't know how to function. And the school district got hold of my dad, who didn't know my mom had gone, and told him that he needed to come back and take care of us, or we would go into foster care. And foster care with 8 kids in the 70s, it wouldn't have been pretty. So he came back, and that was a blessing and a curse. I apologize. Because there was no bones about it. Growing up, I was my mother's favorite child. Everybody knew, and I knew. But when my father returned, I was his least favorite child because of that connection. So, no matter how smart I was, no matter how good grades I got, I was a track star, broke records. There was nothing that I could do that was solid or good with my father. So it created in me a desire to fail or not care if I failed. And it's really an odd, I don't know how to explain it, but it's one of the oddest things. I was 14 years old. My dad was back and I was a trackie. I was fairly smart. I was trying to do work and then not caring at the same time. And one night I just made a decision to run away, to leave. And I left my home. Obviously nobody knew where I was. I was a 14-year-old runaway in 1976. And I turned, or excuse me, 77, I turned 15 as a homeless teen. I lived in the apple orchards, sleeping underneath trees, however I could sleep. And in my mind and my heart at the time, I felt like that was better than what I was facing at home. Somehow I survived for 8 months. I look back and it's incredulous that I survived. I don't know how I ate. I don't remember a lot of how I got food, but I did. In March of 1978, the Yakima County Sheriff found me and returned me to my home. And the very next day, I ran away again. It would be a pattern, sadly, that would last for a long time in my life. Excuse me. When I returned home, I was supposed to be in the 9th grade, getting into the 10th grade, and I still couldn't make it matter. I skipped school. I would get off the bus, go to school on the bus, get off the bus and go out the back door. And several of us kids did that, but I was quite proficient at it. And when I turned 16, when I turned 16, I was done. I had gotten pregnant with my first daughter, and I didn't trust my dad to help me, to take care of me, to guide me. There was nothing that I felt would support me. So again, I ran away. I was 16 years old and pregnant. And I ran away to New Mexico with my soon-to-be husband. I got married at 17 for the first time. And when I came back, my dad came back in December of that year, just before my daughter was born in March of 1980. And my dad forced us to get married. And I was married to my first husband for a long time, about 11 years. When I married Dale, is his name. When I married Dale, he was a young guy too, and he really didn't want a wife and kids. It was a challenge for him. I'm not going to make excuses for him, but he didn't really care about me, and he didn't really care about my daughter. At that point, I had thoughts of going to college, and I had been a high school dropout. I told you that. So I was pregnant with my second daughter at about 19 years old, and I found a program that would help teen moms get their GEDs. So I started that program, and it was inspiring. I had a direction to be able to go to college. They said, yeah, you can go to college with your GED. And it's like, wow, I want to do that. So I started this program, and there were a bunch of teen moms, and you rotated into the baby room. So my first class period was the baby room, and everybody would drop off their babies and then leave. So that was a challenge. And I didn't want to keep doing that. I didn't want to be the babysitter all day long and not get to my other classes. So I fast tracked it and told them I'm ready to take the tests. I took all of them at the same time and I passed. It was crazy. It's like I'm a high school dropout. I barely have a 9th grade education and I did this. So I was kind of on a high then. It's like, okay, that 3 years old and being able to read, that really is paying off now, right? So I got my GED and I told my husband, yeah, I want to go to college. I want to be a teacher. I was so excited. And I really felt like I could go and realize that dream. And he told me, you can do it. Go ahead and do it. But if I see you talking to any male at all, I'm going to slash your face. And without going into the biggest depth of details, he would do it. There was a lot of pain that I had endured at his hands, even to that point in the 2 years that we've been together. So I said, I can't. I mean, in my mind, I couldn't. He didn't want me to work. He didn't want me to go to school. I took care of my kids. I had a third daughter in 1984. And at that point, it's like, okay, you have to go to work. So I started working where he worked. And there's a lot of trauma that I've endured. And I don't know how much you want to hear. It's challenging for me to speak. But from the time I was a little girl, before 6 years old, all I knew was pain. But in the back of my mind, deep down inside my heart, I also knew that people had seen things in me. They had seen ability and they had seen value. And I carried that with me. Dale and I obviously didn't last. I married another man in 1992. And that marriage didn't last. In 1997, I moved from Reno, Nevada, back here home to Washington State. And I met a man who would change my life. He knew when I spoke my dream to him, he knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I had no idea how to make it work. He didn't either, but he knew it was there. And he said, you can do it. It didn't happen. I mean, he and I had a child. We were both working in warehouses, unloading refrigerators, doing heavy jobs, really tough jobs that break your back and make you tired at the end of the day. And I got pregnant with my son, Tyler. And after I had Tyler, I could go back to work, but I would obviously have to put Tyler in daycare. And I found out that with my wages and daycare, at the end of the month, I would have $50. And I told Mark, my husband, I can't put my baby in daycare to earn $50 a month. And I told him, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this work. And I had this bright idea. I want to go to college. And he said, absolutely, do it. So I applied at a community college here, a local community college called Green River College. And obviously I got accepted. At that point in my life, I never graduated from anything. I didn't even know how the higher education system worked, AA, BA, master's, doctorate. I didn't know any of those levels, how to get there, how to navigate any of the systems. I had an extreme deficit for the literature that you read in high school. For those of you who have, you know what I'm talking about. It's deep reading that you interact with. I had none of that, but I made it my mission to not put my kid in daycare for $50 a month. And I did it. So I started Green River 3 nights a week, and I would go, we barely had enough gas money. I mean, it was just that that same amount of everything that was always on our shoulders, weighing us down. It felt like a heavy, heavy weight as well as an intellectual weight, that I always felt that, that complex of not being good enough, the imposter syndrome that I still feel with our doctoral program that I'm in. And I made it. I went through the program, and I was in the ed program, the education program, to be a teacher. And it was the most surreal thing that I've ever done in my life. And at the end of all of that, I still didn't graduate with my AA. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Out of the blue, just before I finished Green River College, where I should have gotten an AA, I got an email from a woman named Wendy Rosen, Dr. Rosen. And it was, hey, we'd love to invite you to Muckleshoot Tribal College cohort 2 meeting for Native American educators. And I was in this, what? Where? Thank you, Creator. Thank you, God. Thank you, whoever sent that to me, because I had no direction. Dr. Rosen sent me that email. I don't know where she got my name, maybe Green River College from some list, but I applied and I was accepted and scared. I had no idea how to do this stuff, and I was still very silent. I was still very unsure of even having a voice, let alone using it. So I started Green River and I got my bachelor's degree, and I was supposed to be doing my teaching, student teaching. And all of a sudden there was an issue with my son's daycare. So it's like, I can't not do this. I can't. I couldn't student teach with my BA. So Dr. Rosen said, there's a solution, Laurie, it's okay. And she told me, it's okay, Laurie, do your student teaching with your master's. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was a possibility. So it's like, okay, I guess it's a solved problem. I'm going to get my master's degree. It's like, sometimes you just go and you do that. And sometimes it's something you have to work on. Like later on, I'll get my master's. But at that point, it was like, nah, you don't have a choice, Laura. You got to do it. So I started my master's degree. And in December of 2007, I became a teacher. It was one of the most amazing. I can't tell you, I shed tears and I think of Dr. Rosen every single day. The journey that I've had, I wish everybody to have who's suffered trauma and has pain that they carry with them, because I think that so many people don't realize that they deserve it. They deserve to speak that dream out to the universe when they're little bitty kids and do what they can with the help of others and the love of God, who my Creator guides me. And they deserve what I got. And I don't feel guilty, but there are times that I wish I could pull so many people along with me and look at them and tell them, I see you. I see the value in you. One of the things that I didn't say when I got my BA was the first time I'd graduated from anything in my life. And one of in my Green River years, one of the assignments was to write to a teacher who made a difference in your life. And I didn't write to Miss Batali. I wrote to Miss Pastrana, who was my 6th grade language arts and social studies teacher. She was the first Latina teacher, person of color, that I ever had. And I loved her. She was beautiful, brand new teacher, 22 years old. And I wrote to her and I said, I'm not sure if you remember me. My name was Laurie Kansleiter. I'm working on becoming a teacher. And I just wanted to tell you how much you made an impact in my life. And she wrote back. And she said, of course I remember you. You were so capable and smart. And she said that about me at a time in my life when I would never have used those words to describe me. So when I graduated with my BA, I wrote to Miss Pastrana and I sent her an invitation to my graduation, my very first graduation. we're in the staging room, getting on our gowns and caps, and I walk out at the Westin in Seattle, and there's this little rockery that people can sit on with plants. I'm walking out in line with my cohort, and there's Miss Pastrana. It had been 35 years, I'm sorry, since I'd seen her. And she looked at me, 40-something years old, and she said, "Hello, Laurie." It was one of the most beautiful moments, excuse me, of my entire life. Excuse me. She didn't get to make it to my master's degree, my master's graduation, but she sent me love. And I'm going to invite her to my doctoral graduation next June, excuse me, July. But Miss Pastrana, Miss Vitale instilled in me as an educator the dream of showing every child their value, allowing even those silent ones to have a voice. I always empower those kids. They have a special place in my heart. The ones that sit there and they never have an answer that they want to share. I always tell them, every one of you, thank you for raising your hands, and thank you for those of you who have the answer in your heart or in your mind, and that you aren't speaking that answer out to us, because I value that you know it, and you know it. I've come a long way in my life. There are a lot of things that I have that are material. I'm capable of taking care of family. I work hard to take care of my children, my students, all 160 of them. And I have, that financial piece that working hard for 16 years as a teacher gives you. But the most valuable thing that I have and have had in my life is a voice. When I couldn't use my voice like I'm using it today, even with tears, I knew that deep down inside, I had it. That 6-year-old girl that you saw in the beginning that took the chance and whispered her dream to the universe, to that beautiful Miss Vitale, who didn't give up on any of us little brown kids, farm worker kids. She didn't give up on any of us. And she said that you can do that. She solidified the deal. And here I am. I started my doctorate in education about 3 years ago. My doctoral dissertation will be on public school administrators. I have been a teacher for 16 years and I have a voice. And sometimes that voice is tried to be silenced, and I don't agree with that. I advocate for people. I advocate for staff members, children, and myself. Usually I'm the last one I advocate for. And in this doctoral program, I have been empowered to work towards social justice on a daily basis. It's always been in me. Now I have the voice. And, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I've been talking for a long time. My story is deep. Sometimes it's triggering. And I know that if you heard some of the deepest details of my life, it would be hard to get it out of your head. It's hard for me. But I do want everyone that's listening and here to understand that even those of us who struggle so hard in the beginning and get lost along the way, and maybe we don't graduate on time, can find our dream. Even if we don't speak it out to the universe, I think that's why my dream came true. Maybe that's really Pollyanna, but that's what I'm going to stick with. I live my dream every day in the classroom. I work to instill love and kindness and dignity in every child that I see. So I'm not sure if I have a whole lot more to say, but I want to say thank you for listening, and I appreciate every ear, every heart it touched you.
Wow, very impressive and inspiring. Thank you so much, Laurie, for sharing your very impressive, inspiring, and of course, great story, life story, because it's inspiring for our students as well. I'm sure most of, that's the human being nature. We all have our own struggles, but some of our students who they are still at the beginning of their path, they're facing with this day and age, they're facing many troubles which we would like to help them, and then hope they get it to the heart, and your story, they just keep it in the mind that they can do it no matter when. But that's very important. Okay, students, if you have any comments or any questions, if it's hard for you to type, you can just turn on your microphone and just talk about it or ask it. No? Okay. Are you here? Seems that no, they're here.
Hi.
Go ahead, Trin.
Hi. I'm so sorry. I'm thank you so much for sharing your story. It was really incredible. I missed where you attended college after you went to the community college in Washington.
I apologize. I did not say that. I actually attended Antioch University, Seattle, who was running a program out of Muckleshoot Tribal College. So there are a lot of tribal colleges in the state of Washington. And Muckleshoot Tribal College connected with Antioch, and they had a program that had 3 different cohorts. I was part of 2 of them for my BA and my master's.
Thank you.
So they're asking questions in the chat box. How are you advocating for social justice? Laurie.
I didn't see that, but how do I advocate? Is that what the question?
Yeah. How do you advocate for social justice?
For me, it is just empowering as a teacher, a classroom public school teacher. I empower my students to understand their strength. I have a lot of students. This school that I teach at is 73%, brown and black kids. And a lot of the children come from Mexico. We have kids from all around the world. So when our students come into our classroom, our building, sometimes it's hard for them to understand their strengths and their rights, and how they have a hard time. 6th grade is what I teach. So they have a hard time understanding that they don't have to just accept everything that's pushed at them, whether that's from teachers or anybody else, bullies, whatever. So my first and most important mission as a social justice warrior, which I do consider myself, is to empower others. For myself, I'm going to use the words of Dr. Stephen Brookfield, who is one of my dissertation chairs. And he says that just because you say that you're an ally doesn't mean you're an ally.
Mm-hmm.
So what I always take that to mean, and I propel forward, is that you have to walk your talk, and you have to understand that just because you say you're for these kids, or just because you say you're for this mission or the social justice issues or whatever it is that's facing Native Americans or anybody else, you have to be able to walk the talk. And maybe that's being on a committee, maybe that's just working on like volunteer work to empower people if you're in legal or educational systems. But for me, it's just being vocal, using a voice that I know comes from my heart. And I do see one question in the chat: the doctoral journey helping me with my teaching. It's been absolutely an amazing journey. I'm getting an EdD in multicultural education and anti-racist schools. And how it's helping me is that it's just honing my ability to see need. The Antioch program that I'm in, and all Antioch programs, I'm a third generation Antiochian, Antioch grad, and every single one of them leads you to your next step. As a BA student, it wasn't as clear to me as it is now. Looking back, I see it very clearly. But everything that I did led me through how to become a social justice warrior, standing up for people, being vocal, and being vocal in a very professional and, you know, not a submissive, but professional way. And then for the young college students, everything that you do, I think that you should do to lead into what your passion is. So what I mean by that is, through the doctoral program at Antioch, what they have guided us through, my committee chair is Dr. Kashani. From the very beginning, Dr. Jackson, all of the people that are our leaders, our education leaders, tell you to, whatever you write for the end result. And it's important, in my opinion, it's important that if you are in a course like the Humanities course and you want to be a teacher, tie something in with your Humanities course that relates to where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing and what your dream is. That it wasn't given to me as advice, but it's just the mission of Antioch University that it isn't like giving you a hand up, it's just giving you a clear path, and they clear it out for you to be able to see your end of your journey. And I think that that's where you all need to be, is if you're looking at finishing up an education or law or whatever end result you are, shoot for every single, aim for every one of those areas in everything that you do.
Yeah. I have a question. If you
me.
think the education system in America should change, and how?
I 100% believe that it should change.
Mhm.
I grew up as a Native American, and I present. People think I'm either Native American or from Mexico. And what I feel, there have been so many detrimental things from teachers. Teachers talk all the time in the shadows, in the corners, about these failings of the educational system. And one of the recurring themes is how there have been so many hands in the educational system that have billions and billions of dollars. Standardized tests is one of the things that is really challenging for teachers. It's not that I don't agree with testing students, but if you're a teacher, I'm a science teacher, so I'm lucky. If I were a math and language arts teacher, I would have people on my back all the time. And you can't make education more relevant when you have bigwigs, billionaires breathing down your neck with these standardized tests that are supposed to say how good of a teacher we are, or, can these kids jump through these hoops? And we talk about differentiating instruction. We talk about all of these pieces that are supportive for these children, but then we gear them up for this big standardized test, and standardize is the most horrible word of that statement. You can't standardize what I knew when I was 6. You can't standardize what you know now at your age. It's individual. So that's the value in those pieces is minimal in teachers' eyes, but our voices are very rarely heard, no matter what. It doesn't matter if I earn a doctorate, they're not going to listen to me anymore, any differently than with my master's. That's an unfortunate thing. I love what I do anyway, and I'm going to keep on doing it even with a doctorate. But the educational system in the United States also, my opinion, also needs to understand that if a child, whether they're brown, black, white, where they come from a home of trauma, like I did, those children need what they're not getting at home. If that's food, if that's comfort from the counseling staff or the people that are able to do like a one-on-one or a very small group to support them, emotional, all of that, but they also need to understand expectations and how to follow just the basic ways that we are expected to go in society. And as a mom of brown boys, one of the things that I have been challenged with is when my kids, my boys are grown up, but when they did something wrong in school, I didn't want them to have a pass. I didn't want them like severely punished, but I wanted them to understand that they did something that wasn't appropriate for that situation. And in a lot of schools, unfortunately, there is a lot of fear of the school to prison pipeline, which is a real thing. It's a lot of our brown and black boys especially are on that track. But if they don't know what's expected of them as adults and they're in school and they're struggling, how are they going to know that that's not okay? This is not okay. Hurting people is not okay. Whatever it is that they're doing is not okay if they're not shown the right way to go. And that's one of the pieces that a lot of us teachers in this building, because it's a school of high needs, which is used to be called a high poverty school. And those students come from homes that are struggling. And they need to know how to function and be able to maybe code switch. I mean, I know that sometimes that's a taboo word, but I don't agree 100%. I'm Native American and I code switch into professional and I code switch back when I go into the res on the reservation. But I mean, that for me, that's one of the pieces that I've heard in all of my 16 years is that there are a lot of people controlling education that have a different kind of stake in it than what we have. The stake that teachers have, and I'm going to say generalize teachers, not just, certain teachers, is that we have these beautiful children's interest in our mind, their ability to shine, or how are we going to help them so they feel like they can shine? We have that in our hearts. But the people who are the bureaucratic piece, the money piece, have a different interest. So where do you have, how can you have that disconnect and still have the same result of successful in their own hearts or minds people when they become adults and graduate? I've talked with my teaching partner last night for an hour about the same topic of how do we fix this, but we as teachers really can't. We can only do what we can do. It's a challenge for sure. I apologize for talking so long.
No, thank you. It was very helpful and really insightful, thoughtful. Thank you so much. And we got to the end of our session.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again for just your talk and participating in this. And thank you again. We wish you luck and for sure we will attend at your graduation for your doctoral degree. Yeah, definitely. And this thank you. I thank you. And students, don't forget to put your name, your class, and your professor's name in the chat box so you can get credit for your participation. Thank you so much, Laurie. Wish you luck and see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.